Welcome back to the public sessions. It is a pleasure to welcome Luca Bocca. He is CFO of Intesa Sanpaolo at his first Mediobanca CEO conference. In over 20 years at the bank, Luca has led strategic planning, capital optimization, and financial transformation across various leadership roles. From overseeing the capital-light bank to directing group planning and control, his career reflects deep expertise in financial strategy, risk management, and balance sheet efficiency. Luca, please welcome.
And good morning.
So let's start from growth. We have not talked about growth for ages in the sector. We now have the specters of US tariffs, war that is spreading across different regions of the planet, and Chinese cars. What is a realistic outlook for growth with lower rates, and what do you expect from fiscal policy in Europe?
Well, for sure, we are used to work in environments that are changing a lot. No? If I think in the last 5 years, we passed through the COVID, the war in Ukraine and Russia, the increase in inflation, the higher rates. And in this scenario, in any case, Italy grown in a rhythm that was above also the Europe on average. So I can say that some point of strength are starting to emerging from our country, and you know that we are 80% Italian, so it's important that the country is leveraging on its point of strength. I can say that we are in a situation in which the economy is quite good, starting also from finally the stability on the government. There are near 3 years that we have a prime minister, and finally when I go around and meet investors, they know who he is and not change because I met them 6 months ago and has changed. So this is for sure something that helps the country. Second, the big digitalization that started after the COVID, because COVID, we need to say, brought a lot of negative things, but brought also something positive, a force that create a stimulus for the economy to be digitalized, and the increase in productivity in all the sectors of the country is quite evident. So I think that the resilience also of our society and our economy is based also on this big work done on the digitalization. And I can add also that our household and our wealth of the household is very high, and so it's something that gives the idea that our country is a AAA country for what concerns wealth. And being well positioned to leverage on this is something that can give us quite confidence about the future. Of course, as you said, there are some forces that are not positive as at the beginning of the year, the tariffs. We have revised our target in terms of GDP growth for the year from 1% at the beginning of the year to 0.7%. Taking in consideration the tariffs, the impact of the tariffs directly on our economy and also indirectly on our exporters like Germany and France. So all in all, we are not in a scenario of recession. We are moving from 1% to 0.7%. We are quite used to work in such environment, unfortunately I can add, but this is the scenario of Italy, and of course Intesa Sanpaolo has the possibility of working well in this environment, especially in a scenario of decreasing rates in which our wealth management proposition can counterbalance the decreasing in NII. So all in all, we are still optimistic. Of course, there are uncertainties, but as I said, there have been a lot of uncertainties in the past, so we are quite used also to work with uncertainties.
Thank you. So moving on to fees, clients loaded up of government bonds around 2 years ago. Where do you see the opportunity from the reinvestment of the maturing bonds, how much of that can you turn into assets under management, and what sort of upside to your fee income do you see from this?
No, it's of course another interesting question that starts from the macroeconomic situation. No? And I think that having increased the level of fee and commission in 2024 of above 9%, in a scenario in which the government bond yield, especially the Italian one, where between 4 and 5% was a massive and an incredible and a terrific job that our team in the wealth management division have done. So now, as you correctly said, we are moving from a scenario in which the competition of the government bond yield has totally decreased because especially the Italian government bond is today in the region of 3.5. So this is a big opportunity to work with our clients that are starting to ask more sophisticated product, and so moving from the asset under administration that has generally a yield between 0.2 and 0.3% to asset under management products that are in the range of 0.8, 1.2. So we have this bulk, identified this bulk of 100 billion euro between asset under administration and direct deposit that can be converted in asset under management in a 2-3 years period of time. But in any case, the ability of the bank has already started because the net inflow in the asset under management are now 3 quarters in a row that are positive, and the vast majority derives also from the switch of BTP that now have reached 40 billion of BTP that are capital gain. So it's simpler for us working with clients, asking them to switch from positive product than negative, you can imagine. And this is related to the fact that, of course, they bought a lot of BTP in scenario of increasing rates, and now with a decrease, they are positive. And if you look at the number of the last issuance of the BTP retail at the end of May, we have seen only 1.5 billion of these issuance going on the asset under administration of Intesa Sanpaolo. This gives the idea that the government bond are now not more a competitor of the asset under management proposition. So we are confident, we have this target of reaching mid-single digit growth for the year. We started the year in the first quarter 7% year on year, so slight in advance. Of course, during April you have some fluctuation in the valuation of the asset under management due to the Liberation Day and the following 15 days, but then the market recover. Today we are in another scenario of uncertainty, but all in all, the trajectory of commission is to reach the target for the entire year.
And so moving to the opportunity from COVID, you launched EasyBank. That's a unit you know very well. Can you give us an idea of where you stand in the rollout of EasyBank? What's the cost-income ratio there, and where do you see the opportunity on cost savings for the next 3 years in the sort of migration into the same digital platform of the rest of the bank?
No, I started with the number because after your beautiful presentation of my story in Intesa, you know that I love numbers. So I start with the cost income of EasyBank, that is 30%. This gives the idea of the main aim of EasyBank in our business plan. That was to serve the client in a totally digital way, having a very light IT consumption in terms of maintenance, in terms of structure, and of course in terms of people. So 30% is clearly a target at which every part of the bank can look at, especially in the retail one. Of course, this is something that will arrive through the time. At the moment, we have decided, due to the fact that EasyBank was launched in 2023, and we have seen that the performance from the IT point of view and the structural approach in terms of the operative business model performed very well, we used the technology of EasyBank also in the parent company. So we are planning to save more or less 600 million euro until the end of 2025 and 800 at the run rate as cost saving. The vast majority, of course, are related to people that will exit the organization in a digital environment in which you do not need the number of headcount that you needed 4 years ago. We set at the end of 2024 an agreement with the labor union that permit to exit 4,000 people in pre-retirement, and the vast majority will arrive in 2025. So we are continuing to leveraging on the digital proposition to do what? To create a sustainability net income, and I think you probably can confirm this on your privileged point of observation. The costs are coming back in the history of the financial institution, because especially for bank in 2022, 23, 24, with the increasing rates, everyone was concentrated on the beta, no? Which is the beta, the NII, 1 million more, 2 million more. Instead, today, with a stabilization or a decrease in revenue, it depends on the different business model, costs are coming back as the central part of the equity story. And having invested a lot during this business plan, we have the possibility to continue to deleveraging people and with no social impact and not normal, because all agreed with the labor union, with the people that are asking to go in pre-retirement, so we are quite confident. But to summarize, we are satisfied with EasyBank. We have 1 million of clients, 700,000 are new clients that arrive. Of course, our clients that use EasyBank for transactional purpose, the next step is also to work with this kind of clients that are totally digital, also on the wealth management and in other form of product in the banking sector.
Thank you. Switching the conversation onto regulation, one of our favorite topics here is the Danish Compromise. Clearly, Intesa Sanpaolo is one of the pioneers on the Danish Compromise, and particularly, I wanted to ask you about the Danish Compromise squared, or so we called it. Do you think it is dead, as many think, and would Intesa Sanpaolo be open to exploiting it for eventual deals in wealth management?
Yes. Speaking about this, I think that now we have a clear statement of ECB about the Danish Compromise. That is, you need to use Danish Compromise for the reason for what it has been created. Of course, that is dealing an insurance company in a banking conglomerate. And this is the aim and the goal that has been made by the supervisor. So no arbitrage in terms of using your insurance company as an holding and you put everything under the holding to create capital. So the explanation of ECB now is quite clear. You need to use for doing a financial conglomerate. It is applied case by case. Mm-hmm. Of course, as you said, we are one of the pioneers. We have the Danish Compromise for our insurance company. And by the way, it has been a lever that permits us also to compensate the Basel IV entrance, because we changed the ponderation, the weighted of the capital on insurance from 380 to 250. So very positive for us. So theoretically is an opportunity. At the moment, we are satisfied with our internal machine. In Italy, we have a market share on life insurance that is very high. near Generali or slight above, it depends on the different quarters. So we have no possibility to find targets that are really applicable and can benefit from Danish Compromise. Of course, is an opportunity. Don't give them it for granted that is applied in any situation. The fact that we started as pioneer give us some advantage and is something that is there and we can use eventually in the future.
Thank you. And just to be clear, there would be no capital benefits in transferring your asset management unit under the insurance, right?
No, because ECB has been very clear. It said that it's not possible to transform in a certain way the deduction of your goodwill in something that is risk-weighted, so we can do this kind of thing.
So continuing on regulation, after 15 years of re-regulation, it is unclear where we're going. Europe is implementing a portion of Basel and delaying another one. The US is going its own way. UK is following. If you had your wish list or where you would wish the regulator to go, what would it be?
Well, I think that clarity is the key word, no? Because sometimes the over-regulator derives also from new rules that want to simplify. That is strange, no? Because you have a rule somewhere, you have a rule in another part of Europe, and then you create a third rule that put the rule together. And this is something that if you look at the buffers, for example, that we have on capital, we have the counter-cyclical, the Aussie buffer, the systemic buffer. So, and you do not know also from an internal perspective of the bank how they are calculated and especially when they are applied or not. And sometimes I know that they are counter-cyclical, but too much counter-cyclical in a certain way. So a simplification of this can be the starting point. And for example, if you think we have changed the currency in which we have measured the risk. So we have moved from Basel III to Basel IV. You are right, only for a part, but in any case, the risk of the institutions are the same, completely the same, but we measure at a higher way. So in this sense, I think that's something that the banks must do, and I'm speaking also with some colleague in the same role in the Eurozone. I think that to make understand ECB of this fact and to simplify the rule of requesting of capital target, because in a certain way we have done a capital increase in terms of how we measure the risk. And this is the first point, looking more on a supervisor level than a regulator level. Then, of course, I'm optimistic by the fact that at the moment there is a common sentiment that Europe must do something. And you asked me about a wish list. I have a personal wish list that is starting to look at things at a European level. Just I want to give you an example. I think that is quite peculiar to use this kind of adjective, that in a moment in which Europe must create the champions of the continent, you have market share and antitrust threshold that are measured at a province level in Italy. So that makes me crazy that I need to be sure if I do not hit the threshold in the province of Crotone or in Valle d'Aosta, and I can't create two big banks in Italy that can lead really and become the champion. So this is impossible at the moment, but this is something that, in my opinion, should do in a very simple way. So transform the antitrust only at the European level. And finally, that is another thing simple to say, especially from the internal part, is to simplify the rule of reporting, because we have thousands and thousands of reporting that's stratified through the time. And I think that the regulators and also the supervisor can do something working, I think, for example, to the link between the request of the ECB and the request of the Single Resolution Board, that at a certain point can be done one time and not two times. So this is something that I have in mind. So putting together these three things, I think that the situation can improve. But I think that it's important to leverage on the strength of the system that has passed the last 10 years with negative rates, with a lot of NPL to the leverage, with a lot of staff in the organization. Now we are in a better situation, so hoping that arrive also an help from the supervisor regulator, but only leverage on our strength is possible to continue to achieve a positive trend.
And you said it before, you exchanged currency in terms of calculation of risk against this perceived miscalculation by the regulator. You still have buffers. Do you expect a refund in part from those buffers, given that you've exchanged the...
I think that this should be the first step, to say, okay, you have three buffers, I can decrease one of them, or to decrease all the three by a certain percentage. On this, I'm not so optimistic. I hope that at least they will not increase again, finding the fourth buffer, the over buffer. I do not know how they can call it. In any case, I think that the important part is again the profitability, because every bank, and especially Intesa Sanpaolo, has a capital target and start above this target and run the bank above this target and is continuing to create capital. So in this sense, I think that maintaining the target of today and maintaining the profitability of today can give us very good remuneration through the time, or even if the target in terms of capital requirement will not change. So this is the point of view.
Thank you. And moving on to M&A, quoting Carlo Messina, the ongoing M&A is a great casino. How do you see the end game on Italian consolidation, and does Intesa Sanpaolo as market leader have a preferred outcome?
Good question. Because I do not know. The outcome is very difficult to have in mind. I can add that for us, it's positive remain on the sideline at the moment. Coming back to the fact that I think that moving our profitability to 8.6 last year, to 9, well above 9, and you know that there is a semantic discussion on how much is well above, but in any case it's above 9. And in a scenario of decreasing rates is a very, very difficult path. And so remaining concentrated on this is a clear competitive advantage, because I know very well, also in a scenario in which the things were clearer, so our transaction with UBI, for example, you lost sometimes discussing the transaction at top management level with your CEO. So having the possibility of not being involved is positive. On the outcome, I think that in any case, have consolidation in a market is positive, especially for the leader. Also because thinking of one of the transactions, so the possible deal between UniCredit and BAMI, put together the two banks that in Italy are quite similar, first of all, so because in the perception someone can think that UniCredit is 10 times BAMI, but in Italy they are more or less the same. And for us it's positive, because if you put together your first and your second competitor, in a certain way, in some region of the country, you lost the 50% of your competitor. So it's positive in terms of market shares, and it's positive in terms of pricing power, without entering in any strange agreement. I'm only speaking about natural thing. And again, coming back to what happened in reality, when we put together Intesa with UBI, we lost more or less 1% of market share, and it's something that we believe that theoretically we can recover. I said theoretically because I do not know if they will go ahead or not. So in this sense, we are not so negative on the consolidation, and I think that the benefit for the system and also for the leader of the system as Intesa Sanpaolo is quite clear.
And so just following from that, would Intesa Sanpaolo be open to take a strategic stake in another European bank, like we have recently seen, for instance, in Greece, and broaden distribution channels for your product factories?
No, definitely not. It's not our approach. Also because we set an agreement, for example, with Eurobank to distribute our asset management product without entering in the capital and creating a casino on the casino, as you said, because it's Casino Square. We can create this one. And so, no, it's not our approach. When we want to do something, we will do. I agree with you that, of course, we have excess of capital, and basically capital can be used for three things. One is internal growth, but in any case, Italy is growing 2-3% on nominal base. So the consumption of internal growth in terms of risk weighting is quite limited. On the external growth, you can have different kind of option, but these are more theoretical. And when you look at the real target, you see that you have a profitability of 20% return on equity. And so if you buy something that is lower, you are destroying value if you are not able to extract synergies. And this is the big question, where we can extract the vast majority of synergy. And so at the moment, we prefer to remain in the third option, that is to use the capital that we have to give back to our shareholders. 70% is the cash dividend and share buyback on top, as we did in the last 4 years, and we will probably do also in 2025. And let me add that in a certain way, this is a passion of myself. No? The fact that in a certain way we have done an M&A with ourselves. Because if you put together the 7 billion that are the 3 share buyback of 1.7 and the 2 billion that we are doing now, we have invested 7 billion in Intesa Sanpaolo, decreasing the number of the share of 15%. It means that on the 9 billion of profitability, in a certain way, our shareholder that remain in the organization, as for example the foundation, has now 15% more of this 9 billion. That means 1.5 billion more on 7 billion of investment. You can calculate the return on investment. It's very, I love to simplify, you know, so probably you calculate better the number, but the return without zero risk is to have something between 15 and 20%. So until we have this strength of continue to deliver EPS and DPS accretion, I think this is the best way to use the capital, not to do financial investment that are not our cup of tea. And so we prefer to use capital in another way.
I like the definition of M&A with yourself. It's almost a cannibalization. To what point will buyback start to eat into vital organs? You know, when do you need to stop?
It's a good question. At the moment, the answer is that not now. So this is quite clear. And I think that also on the result of 2025, we will continue, as I said before. Then at a certain point, I think that the attention also of the market, of the investor, can switch from the remuneration in terms of capital dividend or the money that arrives, that is typically a short-term exercise, that is important, I don't want to say that is not important, to the sustainability of net income. So in this sense, if we are able to deliver an increase in net income as we are able to do now, and you will see in the next business plan at the beginning of 2026, we are planning to do, we can continue to use the excess of capital to do share buyback. But at a certain point, we can also decide to do something because the possible target can give us sustainability in the growing part of the net income. So I think this is the balance that we need to look at and to put on the table to understand that it is better to use the capital for short-term remuneration or stability of long-term remuneration. I think this is the key and tricky question. Again, I want to remember to add another word that I love in this context, that is flexibility. Because with 9 billion of profitability, you generate every year 60, 70 billion of capital. And as I said before, the growing of RWA is limited. We have DTAs that in a certain way compensate. So all this excess of capital we can use for remuneration, but also for doing something without, if you do share buyback this year, I stop every possibility for the future. And also we have flexibility in terms of also managing eventual downside scenario.
Fantastic. I've run out of questions, so maybe we can open to Q&A. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, good morning. My name is Eugenio from Mediobanca. There's a lot of talk, and you alluded to that before, about over-regulation, excessive regulation. I guess there's an area of the financial industry where you would actually welcome a bit more regulatory oversight, which is the non-bank financial institutions. So private credit, shadow banking, call it as you want. As a big European bank, I'd like to understand from you where the discussion is about these, if there's anything at all, what kind of interaction you're having with the regulator, and whether you think if a bit more oversight is in the end enacted on these competitors of yours, the competitive landscape could change in a substantial manner. Thank you.
It's a good question, because it's the classical example. Then the supervisor start to say, okay, we have someone that is not a bank. I start to put threshold and rule to the bank. So this is what happening in the discussion. Of course, the financing of this kind of institution from the bank must be managed in the proper way. I'm not so worried about the competition of them, because I think that our business model is not based on the long growth and the necessity of doing credit. I think that, of course, credit is the most important part, again, of a bank. But don't forget that for us, the book of our company is based on three main pillars. One is the mortgage, that at the moment are outside this kind of institution. On the other side, you have SMEs, and that again is difficult to deal with this kind of non-banking institution. Of course, the competition can be higher on corporate investment banking, but again, it's something that we need to monitor. We need to be complied with the supervisor that are asking us, again, more rule also in how we manage the interaction with this kind of subjects, but it's something that at the moment, in my opinion, I can add also, is better to be in some way regulated to avoid that the a potential risk in the outside of the banking sector can arrive then on the banking sector, because of course the private credit institution deal with the products that are less liquid, with a price that is difficult to set. So this is my point of view.
Any other questions for Luca?
Hi, Matthew Clark from Mediobanca. Can I ask about the Savings and Investment Union and these sort of broader initiatives that seem to be being refreshed or getting a makeover at European level? Do you see particular opportunity for you there? And I guess leading on from that, do you see a need to be more pan-European in terms of your distribution? Or is it sufficient to be a product factory to benefit from those developments? Thank you.
Well, I think that of course is positive, no? Because and especially is positive in the short period of time for the fact that we are thinking to do something different at a European level. Then, of course, you need to move from the theoretical point of view to the practical one. And as I explained before, the fact that we have some threshold and some limit on the competition at a province level is quite peculiar. So I think it will be positive in the short period of time, in the sense that there is this common sense that we need to do something. In medium long term, we need to see, and is one of the key drivers of being pan-European, as you said, because we have a presence that is Italy and some countries in the Central Eastern Europe, and for having a clear advantage of having branches or banking also in other parts of Europe, you need to have a real capital market or saving investment union. What I can add is that on the short period of time, I think that also mobilizing or the money that is already in Italy from the Italian client that I said before, we are a AAA country in terms of wealth, is just a starting point. So before thinking to mobilize the German saving to arrive in Italy, it's important to understand how to use the Italian saving in the Italian economy. For example, looking to tax credit from some kind of investment, because you know that in Italy, tax credit is a key driver for movement of money. And creating more financial knowledge by our client to create the possibility and to make them understand that a person of 60, 70 years old has a certain kind of pension fund, a pension scheme, and a person of 30, 40 has a different one. So we, as an institution, we need also to work with our existing client without to think too much to the future, the money that will arrive from a real investment union. I want to start with the people and the clients that we have today, and I think there are spaces to increase the way of using the money of our actual client to work better, to increase the economy. Also, as I said, creating more knowledge about how finance works and how is the good way of investing money. I think that every one of you read that 2 or 3 days ago, 6 trillion of wealth in Italy are on the current account or at the postal account. So it's quite, starting from there, I do not need to wait from the Slovakian or without Slovakian or Romanian money to arrive in Italy. I want to start with the Italian money to be used in the right way.
Thank you.
I guess we can wrap it up here. Luca, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's the lunch break now. We reconvene at 2 o'clock with Andrea Ocel from Italy.
Thank you.